Hi all and welcome to the Truth, Honour and Integrity Show. My name's Thomas Williams and we have a show on. It's kind of been cobbled together in very short space of time. The last 2 weeks for me personally have been rather hectic, even beyond my standards. I obviously moved to the safe location, and then it was decided that I needed to go back and collect all my stuff so I would be housed permanent. And so I crept back and I got some help from some members of THI. Thanks to them, you know who you are. And I packed up all my stuff, and just me, the van and a 12-foot trailer on late Saturday afternoon, trekked over 2,000 miles with all the belongings, and arrived on Monday afternoon. So much unpacking and much driving and much hectic. So I was offline until yesterday morning, and now I'm back in the saddle again. I'm all partially unpacked. The most important things are unpacked anyway, and I'm now in the safe location, and we'll be here until we finish things up. So let's get into the show. We'll go on to the details and links for the show. And where are we? If you want to listen live, you have two avenues to listen live. It's the first one is www.spreaker.com/user/8955881, and the what we call the articles website, which has all the archives of the shows. You can listen live, and there's a lot of self-empowerment and help sections, and also a new forum for solutions on thinkdifferent.thepeoplesclub.org. We have the Facebook and Facebook alternative social media of MeWe, and they're both called Truth, Honour and Integrity. And the email for the show, if you're struggling to find MeWe, send an email, and you can send comments there, and also questions for the show. And the email is truth.honour.and.integrity@gmail.com. We have the People's Club website at thepeoplesclub.org, and we also have the Patreon, which is going rather well, and I want to say thanks to you all. I'm going to cover a bit on that in a minute, but for those who want to or can afford to contribute, it's www.patreon.com/TommyW/memberships. Right, a couple of announcements before we get into some news items. I want to say happy birthday to Glenn. I hope he enjoyed his day, and also Terry. And don't forget it was Drake's birthday yesterday as well. Yeah. Well, you know, so happy birthday to Glenn and Terry. Something has come up, and I was going to mention it in a previous show, but it's just come up again. I'd like members to, in future, please refrain from posting any questions onto the pinned post on the Facebook and the MeWe within 1 hour of the start of the show. And the reason being is it doesn't help Holly collect all the questions when she's busy monitoring the two chat pages that are open then. And it also doesn't help me having to add them into the show, which I'm already preparing for. So if you've got questions for the show, please have them in at least an hour before the show. So thanks for that. Now, a quick word about Patreon, and once again I want to thank all who've been able to contribute. I'm kind of overwhelmed by it all, but thank you all. I need to remind people that the payments that come out of your account or card or whichever way you've chosen to donate comes out on the 1st of each month. So it doesn't come out immediately. It comes out the 1st of each month, and a number of people last month had payments declined. So can you all make sure you have sufficient funds for your donation on the 1st of each month? And it appears some of those declines were not just about the shortage of funds, but more to do with incorrect details of the account or card that you'd allocated for the payment. You should have received emails directly from Patreon saying that your payment was declined, and if you can correct those things, I would be grateful. Right, let's get into some news and views around the world that I've managed to cobble together with the help of one of the members as well. And we have got some intel. We haven't got op-ed pieces tonight because I just didn't have enough time, but a couple of pieces that I'd like to cover that I received from listeners, one in Canada and one in the Klamath project, so something that needs to be highlighted. So we'll start with Zimbabwe, and the opposition leader has said President Emerson Mnangagwa, try saying that if you're drunk, election victory is a coup against the people's will, and Nelson Chamisa repeated his claim that the results announced late last Thursday were all fake, and said he had won the Monday's presidential poll. Responding, Mr. Mnangagwa called for peace, but said people were free to challenge the result in court. And this was actually the first election in Zimbabwe since long-term leader Robert Mugabe was ousted. But this, in reality, is another victory for Zimbabwe and for the world. Mnangagwa is for the people, protesting against joining the Commonwealth and also the Rothschild's plan to steal all the in-ground resources of that country. So this person needs to be supported. You're seeing a lot of it around the world. Venezuela is another one. I'll cover that later. But Sharamba, who's the one who's complaining about the result, was a Rothschild's choice and had already made deals, a bit like Hillary Clinton, signed away all Americans' in-ground resources, only to lose a one-horse race. Oops. So all those deals got cancelled. So we'll see what happens next with Zimbabwe, but expect that country to be in the news quite a bit with Venezuela. And also this next one, it's linked to Zimbabwe in a roundabout way. And medical teams in the Democratic Republic of Congo once again hope to use, according to them anyway, an experimental vaccine to prevent the latest outbreak of Ebola becoming an epidemic. Now, preliminary testing suggests that the strain of Ebola has emerged is known as Zaire, of all the names to pick. For those of you with long memories, Zaire is the original name of the Republic of the Congo. It's a bit like Rhodesia. Zimbabwe was originally called Rhodesia. Funny how they all change the names and think everyone forgets. It's a bit like Belgium being formerly Holland. This alleged recent strain has appeared in another province 1,550 miles away, in which the experimental vaccine had been successfully used. It depends on what terminology you're calling successful, in my opinion. But they're stating that the strain is the most deadly type of Ebola and carrying a mortality rate of 50%. This is more clowning around by the clowns, and is linked to Zimbabwe because the people at the top end of the Republic of Congo are not playing Rothschild's games either. And neither is Venezuela, and neither is other countries. So watch those two. Hello, NYPD. Perhaps you should follow this police department in Massachusetts. The entire police department of a small Massachusetts town resigned last Monday, saying town officials have failed to address their concerns about low pay and unsafe equipment. Now, all the members of the Blandford Police Department made the decision to resign last Friday after alerting town officials multiple times about unsafe working conditions, and according to the former interim police chief, Mrs. Roberta Sarnacki, it became more and more apparent how dangerous the situation was, and the enormity of it all kicked in on Friday, and they all walked out. Like I said, NYPD follow their lead until they cough up and produce that video on national TV. So I hope all the police forces are supporting those cops in Massachusetts. They need to get together, and they need to get together rather quickly, I might add. Where are we next? Norway. I posted, it's rare I do a post, but I posted something about the child abuse, sexual trafficking and all kinds going on in Norway. And it's funny that the UN rates Norway as one of the best countries for a child to grow up in, really. And yet, so many children, according to a large number of Norwegian experts, are taken into care without good reason. Now, the conviction of a top psychiatrist in the child protection system for downloading child abuse images is now raising further serious questions. This is a carbon copy that I've mentioned before of what happens in the UK, where social workers are being paid outside of the social services system, even though they work in it, are being paid, from what I gather, £20,000, which is roughly $28,000, to remove children from homes, whether those homes are good, bad, or neutral. Doesn't matter. They given a target child, and the child is removed and put into care. And what happens next is the parents have no say in it. They get rushed into a private court where the parents or a lawyer cannot represent. And within a week, those children are pushed into foster cares, which are all part of the sexual and child trafficking group. It has to be stopped. So Norway is another one that needs to be dealt with. Where are we next? President Donald Trump's media attacks raised the risk of violence against journalists, according to UN experts. I didn't realise there was any. And in a statement, David Kay and Edison Lanza, wasn't that the same name as the family from Sandy Hook? Of the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, called the attacks strategic, and they said it undermined press freedom and verifiable facts. Really? And the comments follow hours after Mr. Trump's daughter Ivanka distanced herself from her father's attacks, and Trump has repeatedly criticised the media before and during his presidency. He declared journalists to be enemies of the people, which has drawn condemnation across the political spectrum. Well, it's fairly simple, isn't it? You start telling the truth, or we call you fake. It's as simple as that. So if you don't like Trump calling you fake news, stop reading fake news. It's that simple. That's why all your ratings are plummeting, because no one's buying the cabal agency script anymore that you're all reading. Doesn't matter which town, county or state you're in, They're all reading the same script, and it's all fake. So if you don't want to be called out fake, stop reading it. Fairly simple. Tide's turned. No one's listening to you anymore. So kudos to Trump for calling them out, because us in the alternative media have been calling them out for many years. Where are we next? First Lady Melania Trump. Her office is operating without a policy director currently. Reagan Headland, who was hired for the job by Trump in January, recently departed the First Lady's team, according to a source with knowledge on the East Wing staffing change. Headland came to Trump's office from National Security Council, where she was an executive assistant. Prior to that, she served as policy and communications advisor to Mike Pompeo when he was a Republican member of the House of Representatives from Kansas, before his roles as CIA Director and Secretary of State. She is no longer with the office, and we wish her the best, according to Trump's Communications Director, Stephanie Grisham. Seems very quietly they're all being pushed out. It is increasing. Story that broke this week, and I have further news for Mr. Obama in the intel. TikTok. But since April of 2016, Obama's campaign organisation has paid nearly $1 million to the law firm that funneled money to Fusion GPS. We've covered that particular group a number of times. And that money was to compile a dossier for unverified allegations against Trump. So in other words, just make stuff up. And the former President Barack Obama's official campaign organisation has directed nearly $1 million to the same law firm. And this is the firm behind the infamous Steele dossier. Mr. Steele, not Robert David Steele, although he's part of the clowns, but Christopher Steele. But Obama's group has paid $972,000 to Perkins Coie, spelled C-O-I-E, and records filed with the Federal Election Commission show that Perkins Coie, an international law firm, was directed by both the Democratic National Committee and also by Hillary Clinton's campaign to retain Fusion GPS in April of 2016, which was all designed to dig up dirt on Donald Trump. From there, Fusion GPS then hired Christopher Steele, who was a former British spy, to compile a dossier of allegations that Trump and his campaign actively colluded with the Russian government during the 2016 election. I don't know about you, but I'm getting tired of reading about Russian collusion. It's all BS. Although many of the claims in the dossier have been refuted, none of the dossier's allegations of collusion have been independently verified. Like I said, they just make stuff up and throw it at the wall and hope some sticks. Now, lawyers for Steele admitted in court filings last April that his work was not verified and was never meant to be made public. Really? And it just keeps on rolling. Republican, another one bites the dust. Chris Collins, this time from New York, has been arrested on insider trading charges lodged by the Justice Department's law enforcement officials last Wednesday, and the indictment obtained from a federal grand jury. Interesting. I'll say that again, from a federal grand jury. Also charges Collins' son, Cameron Collins, as well as the father of his fiancée, Stephen Zarsky. And in June 2017, Collins passed non-public information about innate drug trial results to his son in order to help him make timely trades in innate stock, INNATE, and also tip others that the indictment alleges. Now, the indictment obtained from the federal grand jury relates to the Australian biotech company Innate Immunotherapeutics, on which Collins served as a board member, go figure. And it alleges Collins, 68, scrambled to call his son from the White House lawn and tell him non-public information about a failed drug trial in which they both owned shares. So, he's been charged, as well as his son and the father of his fiancée, according to the court filing. Now, the father of the missing 3-year-old who was arrested on a New Mexico compound this week was linked to extremist Muslims. This is the Muslim Brotherhood goons, Obama's group. And they were training children to commit school shootings. This has been revealed in the court documents that were filed on Wednesday. And the prosecutors alleged that Mr. Wahaj, who's 39, was conducting weapons training on the compound where 11 children were found hungry and living in squalor. They asked Wahaj, who appeared in court on Wednesday, and he was held without bail. Now, the makeshift compound, located near the Colorado border, was found shielded by old tyres, wooden pallets and other debris. And upon authorities' arrival, Wahaj was heavily armed with an AR-15 rifle and 5 loaded 30-round magazines. Also 4 loaded pistols, including one in his pocket when he was taken down. And the sheriff said the children aged 1 to 15 looked like third world refugees, not only with no food or fresh water, but with no shoes, personal hygiene, and basically dirty rags for clothing. This is why the issue of the wall. These are coming up from the south. And you're just collecting children willy-nilly and then training them to do school shootings. Now you understand why there's so many school shootings. Where are we next? I'll wait for time. Okay. Paul Manafort, big trial going on. And prosecutors are using the IRS agent Michael Welsh to state clearly what they argued in the opening statements and have witnesses testify on for several days now. And what became clear is Paul Manafort did not pay taxes on all of the income he earned in, wait for it, the Ukraine. Remember us talking about the fun and games in Ukraine and the Nazis creating havoc? Well, there you go. Ukraine, the income earned between 2010 and 2014. Wells said Manafort received about $15.5 million from Ukraine, which he then paid directly to vendors, and which he did not report or pay taxes on. And the money never entered Manafort's business or personal accounts in the United States, according to the IRS agent, Mr. Welsh. He also falsely classified another $1.5 million in income as a loan. And the FBI accountant testified earlier Wednesday that more than $60 million flowed through Manafort's overseas accounts between 2010 and 2014, and he spent $15 million of that on homes, clothes and other personal purchases. And Wells said he also looked at the income that was never brought into the United States, and he said he had a conservative estimates in what he allowed as possible business expenses, including €132,000 to a yacht company, $49,000 for an Italian villa rental, and $45,000 for dentistry. Did he pay for Corey's wife's teeth as well? 45,000. Oh my God. And 19,800 for a riding academy, really. And he also testified that Manafort had 16.4 million in unreported income, and the IRS agent said that the tax returns Manafort filed in those years were also false, but he didn't indicate he had foreign bank accounts. So that boy's in trouble. Here's a good news story that applies to Wells to Fargo, as in what the group. Hundreds of people had their homes foreclosed on because software used by Wells to Fargo incorrectly denied them mortgage modifications. This could really set the cat amongst the pigeons for those who got foreclosed on, because I went through it. I asked for a mortgage modification, which they denied 3 times, and it's deliberate to take the home off you. Anyway, Wells to Fargo revealed the issue in a regulatory filing this week and said it has set aside $8 million to compensate customers affected by the glitch, as they call it. And they said the computer error, affected certain accounts that were undergoing the foreclosure process between April 2010 and October 2015. Also of note in that article is this line. The same filing also disclosed that Wells Fargo is facing formal or informal inquiries or investigations from, take note, an unnamed government agency over how the company purchased federal low-income housing tax credits. Wells to Fargo is in a lot of trouble. Take note of the unnamed government agency. That may come up a lot. Chicago, oh dear, often known as Gangster City, home of Obama and his merry team of gangsters up there, but you know, it's completely out of control up there now. And 77 people were shot just last week alone in Chicago. 9 fatally. But the rate of shootings has accelerated as reports of 30 shot in 3 hours is the most shot in the least amount of time in recorded history in Chicago. Well, the previous record was 29 in 6 hours. This is 30 in 3. And people in Chicago are now calling for Obama's fellow gangster puppet Rahm Emanuel to be fired, citing a lack of urban development in the poorest sections of the city. But to me it seems like what we've highlighted before, like other major cities in America, they are pricing people out altogether, and Chicago is another example. All the money is going into the north end of the town, as I understand it, and the east and the south, if memory serves me correctly, are just being left in squalor. But the people with guns there have to be better than what they are. You know, most of it's drug and crime related, and that needs to be fixed. Saudi Arabia has now decided to expel the Canadian ambassador, not a surprise, and has frozen trade ties with the nation after a rupture of relations over Canada's interference in the internal affairs of the Islamic Kingdom. Mr. Trudeau is stepping on toes and people are fighting back. In a series of tweets on August the 5th, the Saudi Arabia Foreign Ministry declared that they were expelling the Canadian ambassador Dennis Horak and were recalling its own envoy in Canada as well. The Kingdom has also frozen all new trade and investment transactions between the two nations, and they went on to say, we consider the Canadian ambassador to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia persona non grata and ordered him to leave within the next 24 hours. That's going to get interesting. Right, we're going to have one more piece, and then we're going to go into a music break, and then we're going to have some intel. But plans that have been revealed today for an American Space Force branch to be rolled out by 2020. Interesting timing that, methinks. 2020. Trump has called for a separate but equal Space Force and a complicated and more expensive move that requires congressional approval. Now that's different to what's currently, because there is no congressional approval over the SSP. Or NASA for that matter. On Thursday, Mike Pence said that the administration will work with Congress on the plan and will outline a budget next year. Defence Secretary Jim Mattis has endorsed steps to reorganise the military's space warfighting forces and create a new command, but has previously opposed launching a pricey new service. A new branch of the military would require layers of bureaucracy. Not really. That needs to be streamed right back. Military and civilian leaders, uniforms, equipment and an expansive support structure. No, it's already there. Maybe some people aren't aware, but most of it's already there. Now, the interesting aspect of it, take note, read between the lines. The Pentagon proposal delivered to Congress Thursday lays out plans to consolidate the Pentagon's warfighting space forces and make organizational changes to boost the acquisition and development of leading-edge technologies. The Pentagon's role in space has been under scrutiny because of a recognition that the United States is increasingly reliant on satellites that are difficult to protect in space. Well, they're difficult if you don't put rogue satellites in space and play games with them. Some people wouldn't decide to take them out, would they? Again, it's like the media, fake news. If you tell the truth, people are happy. If you use satellites against humans in a rogue way, you're going to have them removed, and many of them have been removed. And if you keep putting them up, we'll keep taking them down. Fairly simple. Right, we're going to have a couple of songs now, and shall we have one? No, we'll just have one. We're only 40 minutes in. We'll have one song, and this is Muse and Uprising. There's uprisings happening in many countries now. Good stuff. Hi all, and welcome back. Where do we start? We've got quite a bit of intel. Some of it rather good, and some of it a bit of a concern, but it is being worked on. And let's start with the first piece. Yet again, there was failed payout days in the past week. They've tried again and they failed again. And last night there was further hacking attempts were made to get into the quantum system out of Singapore and also New Zealand. And what they were trying to do was trying to implement a new black screen system, which is another backdoor version of the old system. And anyway, that was notified, blocked and deleted. So another wasted attempt by the cabal. It's now come to our attention that fraudulent notes, US dollar, are filtering into America now with 2013 printed on them. Now, all of those notes are fraud, as no new notes with the correct and verified allocation numbers have been printed since 2009. Work is underway to deal with that particular issue. There's also fun and games in the Philippines. Now, the Philippines have had warehouses full of pesos that have been there since Marduk was in charge, and now they are attempting to roll them out and attempting to buy gold with them from the locals. But it turns out that the locals have been duped also, as the gold bars that they think they have are all gold plated. Oops. So fake gold has been purchased with fake money, and I would say that was another country to watch for and expect some fun and games over there in the near future. Now, I'm getting frequent reports around the world, including from members in THI, of issues with banks and unable to get access to accounts. Now, we have warned you all, you must have spare cash now at all times. You just have to. You know, things are rather delicate to do with cash at the moment. It's quite dire in many ways. But expect these incidents to increase as all their funding, or for a better term, looting avenues, are being closed down as time goes by. You know, new ones pop up and you close them down. And sometimes, you know, it can be closed down in an hour, and sometimes it may take more than a week. You know, but slowly but surely, every one of those looting and backdoor accounts and all that are getting shut down. And perhaps this explains it better. This is what Tank wrote yesterday. And he said that there is no real private ledger anymore. This is to do with the banking. The only off-ledger accounts currently hold all of the real wealth of the planet. They're all off-ledger. And these are all held and are allocated into the Manor World Holding Trust. The other books cannot be used. This is like the black screen and the black book that Neil Keenan had. Those codes no longer work because the quantum system recognises when they try to allocate assets to it that have already been allocated and rejects them, stating cannot duplicate. This applies with the duplicate notes, where they printed a load of notes with the same allocation number. The system recognises it. It's already in situ and just deletes it. And Tank went on to say, furthermore, privacy in banking is what got us into this mess in the first place, and it's like hiring the people who robbed you, killed your family, left you for dead as your security. Exactly. And all you know about them is that they are willing to do whatever it takes to get whatever they want, and they don't value the same things that you do. That is correct. And this leaves us in a constant state of duality, fighting for power in a system that requires cooperation to work. That line says it all. Eventually, what I put out in the show a couple of weeks ago that got cut short is the key aspect. Things will only work when everyone cooperates. Eventually the clowns will see that for a reality, At the moment, they are denying it. But nothing works anymore because it's not designed to. We're in a different time space and a different zone altogether, so it doesn't work. And the only way things will work going forward is when everyone comes together. Like I said before, it's that simple. But these people are a different type of simple and don't understand common sense. And Tank went on to say, this is why there can be no overnight revaluation of currencies. It's a nigh on impossibility. Although the Chinese elders, white dragons and various other individuals hold fraudulent paperwork, have tried over and over again to hack into the trust using outdated codes or trying to kidnap the trustee and force her to do their bidding, and they have never come close to actually having access to these accounts. So that's kind of where we're at with the banking. Now, Julian Assange. Everyone wants to know which way he's gonna, or which side he's gonna play for. But the problem with Julian Assange is he can't play for his own, and it's going to get rather awkward for him in the coming days and weeks. And here's why: the issue is essentially he is in a tug of war between the factions of trying to get him to testify a load of bullshittery in exchange for his freedom. So in other words, give a load of false information. Now, Assange is holed up in the Ecuadorian embassy in London, and officials want him to testify in front of the Senate. Now, 10 Democrats, one of which is the Mad Hatter known as Pelosi, have signed documents to get him to be released or thrown out of the embassy and sent to America to testify. And the reason the Democrats think they can do that is they think he has info on Russian collusion, there's that word again, in the last election, except he doesn't. But they wish to blackmail him to say that and get immunity and freedom in exchange. Now, this is why there was a state visit of the President and the First Lady of Ecuador to London recently. But the most disturbing aspect of it all is Mike Pence, the Vice President, is also involved with the Democrats, and he made a visit to Ecuador recently. Why did he go? What was his purpose? And more importantly was he promised something by the Democrats? Question mark. Now, I want to make it clear, the next part is me speculating. It's not fact, it's me speculating at this point. But it does look like the Dems offered Mike Pence a deal to become president if he plays along with the Julian Assange Russian collusion blackmail. Because at that point, Trump will be impeached and fired based on blackmailed evidence given by Assange. Now, Assange essentially is a dead man walking here, and he needs to stand by the truth as it is, not play cover-up games again that lets these clowns off the hook. He should know by now he will never get his life back to what it was. No matter who promises what, he and others need to hold their nerve and stand for and by the truth, whatever that may be. I'm hoping that those Democrats get dealt with, and as for the Mad Hatter, she needs to be locked up. Divisions in the camps within the factions are now becoming a bit of an epidemic. So much so that the deep state sent a message to Obama through an interview on CNN this week that he is no longer protected. Oops. Here's somebody else that may not, who is also not protected anymore. Now, we are aware of certain ongoing actions, investigations, and in some cases arrests. And not all are revealed on the show for operational purposes. And I'm sure you all understand that by now. But I spoke last week of the steady erosion of power and control, and that continues at a pace. To be honest, it's not yet fully seen by the alternative media or the general public yet, but it will increase. But the reports that came out this morning was aligned with something that we already were aware of. It would suggest that a ramp up on the bigger names and evidence is being garnered now in a more public way. And what happened was the Justice Department had a Boeing 757 with a tail number of N119NA land in Little Rock, Arkansas. And the local radio station reported that DOJ employees were loading boxes of documents into the plane, and it is suspected that it's from the Clinton Foundation. We'll see. Now, the issue in blocking over the Clintons is because of Comey and McCabe, and also the stooge agent who goes by the name of Diane Upchurch. They're the ones that have been blocking at the FBI and others the Clinton investigation. If that's fully confirmed, then they're in trouble, and we might have a rather happy day. Now, privately, the word that's gone out on the back channels, intelligence channels, and the word on the street now is the Clintons will now be used by the cabal as the scapegoated sacrificial lambs. Bye. Maybe time for Anne to start singing now as well. Let's leave that one to later. Now, let's throw it in, a bit of light-heartedness. So it appears the Obama is no longer protected, and Clinton is now going to be the lamb to the slaughter. Oh my. As for the Mad Hatter, Pelosi, oh dear me, who voted these people in? Her comment this week is there's been a plastic straw ban, which is, according to Pelosi, is important for gun control. A plastic straw ban is important for gun control because it stops pea shooting and spitballing, which, according to Pelosi, are gateway guns. It's just like comedy stuff, isn't it? We'll have more about comedy later. Mr. Sather. Oh dear me. Pea shooters are gateway guns. Somebody put it in a yellow bus. That's that woman's completely lost it. Now for the next story, which will follow. We'll have another musical break. It fits in rather nicely. But the Rothschilds put out another contract this week on Kim and the team, which is Nothing unusual, given what's gone on in the past 1 or 2 years. What is unusual is no one came forward to take that contract on. No one. The enormity of that for us should not be lost on the listeners. Because basically what it's saying now is it's really game on with the Roths. Less and less are listening to their lying and conniving ways anymore, and their power, control and wealth is all eroding away rapidly. To the Roths, you should have took Kim's offer. She gave you 18 to 24 months back. As those you used and trampled over may now come back to bite you. Have a nice day, Roths. No one's listening to you anymore. Now this piece of news came in after that last piece. It's on the back channels again. Heavy chatter is now going on that supports the previous story, and there is talk of a mass mutiny within the Rothschildian minion ranks. They're tired of not being paid. I now suspect the fun and games will now really kick into gear, and just maybe Rothschild's minions may be putting these up. Hi all and welcome back. Hope you all sang along to that. So the Rothschildians are in big trouble now. We said this will come eventually, where the minions would turn against the top order, and that's now what's taken place. And good luck to them. Right, where are we next? Venezuela. I promised I would mention about Venezuela, and this is what's really going on the boots on the ground in Venezuela. And the issue is all to do with the FARC guerrillas. We've mentioned this group before, and these are another aspect of the Rothschild's army. And they are being funded by oil deals and also other minerals that's been looted out of Venezuela. Now, some of those guerrillas were sent to attack Kim previously, as said, I've been mentioned that before. But the issue is the UN, or the Rothschild's portion of the UN, that's carrying on without any charter, have been training Hugo Chavez's daughter for a stooge role in Venezuela, using the popularity her father had. But she's not of that ilk. And so they're trying to oust the current president of Venezuela and replace her with Hugo Chavez's daughter, who is a Rothschild stooge. And I hope the people of Venezuela see through that illusion. Now, Venezuela has become almost like a sanctuary for a number of rogue element groups. It's not only the FARC guerrillas, but Obama was sending Muslim Brotherhood jihadists into Venezuela as well, via Oman and also Saudi Arabia. And the port is also used there to process the stolen ISIS oil. This is where the money's coming from. And that's not working out too well either, given that the president is fighting back. And so now the clowns are now looking to use Mexico to process the stolen ISIS oil. I hope Mexico tells them where to go as well. Otherwise that wall might get built a lot quicker. Now, also about Venezuela and their currency, Bolivar. The word is vast quantities of those notes were printed out recently by the De La Rue printing company, which is also Rothschild's controlled. And essentially this was another attempt to fulfill the RV based on oil contracts. Now, for people with long memories, they tried to do that oil-based currency with the dinars, and that failed. So quite how they think they can do it with bolivars is beyond me, but these people are stupid. And the oil contracts were all in place, and guess what happened? No one got paid out. A common theme. Maybe the FARC guerrillas will turn on the Rothschilds as well. Now, we did mention about oil prices going down, and they are going down steadily. And this is a key pointer to make. Canada Natural Resources, which is the largest producer, is allocating capital to lighter oil drilling now, and is curtailing the heavy oil production as the price of Canadian heavy oil tumbled to a near 5-year low relative to the US benchmark price. So it is starting to take effect. And also, as we forecast about Bitcoin, the Bitcoin miners have now stopped mining due to the Bitcoin price drop. I think we warned of that back in November last year, was it? Tariffs. This is the reason why. The tariffs, we covered it briefly recently, but Trump did 2 tweets today, and it says tariffs are working big time. Every country on earth wants to take the wealth out of the US, always to our detriment. I say, as they come, tax them. If they don't want to be taxed, let them make or build the product in the US. In either event, it means jobs and great wealth. And he went on to say, because of tariffs, we will be able to start paying down large amounts of the 21 trillion in debt that has been accumulated. And much of it by the Obama administration, while at the same time reducing taxes for our people. At a minimum, we will make much better trade deals for our country. And the reason for this is American people have paid for literally everything, certainly since the Second World War, and maybe even further back. The UN, which was previously League of Nations, NATO, both heavily funded by the American people. The NAFTA trade deal, the Trans-Pacific trade deal, and a transatlantic trade deal, most of which was to do with off-world trade, not on, certainly the last two. And again, America and its people lost out. Wars everywhere, which the American people paid for. The IRS money is going to a Swiss bank owned by the Rothschilds. The list goes on and on and on. Well, some people have decided we've had enough of that, and once everything is dealt with and settles down, the outcome will be America and its people will become a lot better off. There'll be more jobs, there'll be better paying jobs, and subsequently I would suggest, because I think the people should demand it, that taxes should really be reduced drastically. We're being told to pay the interest payments on that 21 trillion, which has nothing to do with us and everything to do with clowns. Well, if that disappears, that's an awful lot of money back into American coffers that can be spent on the people, you know, the ones that provided the funds to begin with. In fact, we're not paying for NATO, the UN anymore. Maybe NATO will be coming up soon. Better deals with the NAFTA, cancelled the TPP and cancelled the TAP. And the fact that 860 billion went out of the IRS into Rothschild Bank in Switzerland when it should be going into the American Treasury Again, that money can be better spent on the people and can also reduce taxes drastically. We've paid for enough. Where are we next? Yeah, let's start off with this. Now, there's been a pattern recently. Obama announcing deals with Netflix, and Hillary potentially trying to launch a liberal TV show. I don't think that's going to happen, girl, anymore. Sorry. And now we hear this week that Jordan Sather apparently is appearing in Comedy Central. Really, it's all too funny. You know, failed clowns on national TV has kind of ran its course. I think we can all agree on that. And it's time we had more real people with real news and enough of the agency scripted BS we've all had to endure since World War II. But Jordan Sather in Comedy Central, I would say he's already in Comedy Central with Captain Corey as the commander of the Blue Chicken Cult. You know, David Wilcock as the seedy agent who looks after number one. And perhaps in the first episode in Comedy Central will be Corey's wife goes to the dentist for $6,000, all paid for by the comedy audience that follows the Blue Chickens. You know, who comes up with this stuff? Jordan Sather on Comedy Central. Oh dear. I wonder did David approve of that? Oh my. And here's the reason why we have paid agents in the alternative media and paid agents elsewhere. The bill HR 5181, which was stuffed into the 2016 NDAA bill, basically set aside, wait for it, $160 million to pay alternative media journalists, amongst others, to spread disinformation to counter what they claim is fake news. I did warn 2 or 3 years ago that the alt media was a den of iniquity. People were shocked when I said 70% are rogue, and that was a low figure. I knew then it was 90. Now you're seeing how and why. Money talks, you see. Not everyone will ignore the seducements. Kim and the team have been offered extraordinary amounts to step away. We've told them to go and F themselves, like they told us when we offered them a deal to step down. Well, 160 million set aside to pay alternative media to spread disinformation. Did say it was going on a far heavier scale than people realised. You know, more and more are going to get exposed. Coming soon, Cara St. Louis. Oh, I've waited for that one for a bit, but there we go. Talking about paid journalists, Alex Jones has gone into a full meltdown, but all of it is pure theatre to psyop. Another one of the look, I'm being attacked so I must be valid. It's classic Wilcock and classic agency tactics. and resembles all the fuss a few years back when Alfred Weber got banned off the Facebook. That was another sideshow, as he's a government agent. He worked under the Carter administration, amongst other things. But Alex Jones is COINTELPRO, pure and simple. Works for the Stratfor Group, known for Israeli intelligence. And he shouts about the cabal and corporate control, and yet the same guy makes $3 million plus a year in advertising from the very companies that are damaging us with their core pirate tactics. Do you really think those companies would promote a genuine whistleblower that is exposing their own company's role in the control system? Well, do you? Think about it. So, ignore his ridiculous rants and let him carry on bursting the blood vessels in his forehead. It's all pure psyop stuff. Alex Jones and rambling on. Right, where are we next? Two articles that have been sent in via the emails that I thought would be useful to highlight. And the first one is this particular group are a group of utility ratepayers and concerned citizens that have banded together to prevent the sale of Avista Corporation, which is one of the largest suppliers of electric and natural gas generation in the Pacific Northwest. Now, Avista signed an agreement to be bought out by a Canadian electrical distributor owned by the province of Ontario, named Hydro One. And Hydro One is a company that borders on bankruptcy, and it has the worst reliability records and highest rates in all of Canada. So this particular group are opposed to this buyout due to sovereignty issues and the possibility of skyrocketing electrical rates if history is any foresight of the future. Now, Hydro One charges a 70% surcharge on their bills for a global adjustment fee. Oh dear. That's siphoning money, in other words. And this pays a subsidy for inefficient wind and solar power producers to the tune of over $1 billion a month that comes out of the rate or taxpayers' pockets. They in turn they turn off a large percentage of their customers for non-payment every month, and they don't want this scheme brought to the states of Alaska, Washington, Idaho, Oregon and Montana, where Avista resides. So it affects the northern states in America also. We do not think it's smart to sell the control of 13 dams that Avista owns, especially while the renegotiation of the Columbia River Treaty with the US and Canada that is currently in progress. We also do not think it's wise to allow the climate change agreements in Canada to be imported here to the US, and we have procured an attorney named Norm Semenko to help us fight this case, and would appreciate any financial help from the public or any other like-minded organisations. They went on to say, we are making progress on our path, having the Idaho Public Utility Commission now possibly having an evidentiary hearing next month where our concerns will be fully addressed. So they want to some support to stop this madness now before we are all bankrupted by sky-high utility bills. And if this merger is not stopped, it will filter to all utilities in the Northwest. So if you want to get involved in that and you're a customer of Avista, go to avistacustomergroup.org. Next one, this listener or member is on the board of the Siskiyou County Water Users Association, and their association, along with the Board of Supervisors for Siskiyou County, and the Association of Klamath Project Farmers and Ranchers, Copco Lake residents, and also many other stakeholders have been fighting to save 4 dams along the Klamath River for the last 20 years now. These dams provide many benefits to Northern California and also Southern Oregon residents and farmers and ranchers, including inexpensive clean power, irrigation water, flood control, groundwater recharge, sedimentation of toxic algae from the Klamath Reservoir, cold water for salmon fisheries and fish hatchery, recreation and stable riparian environment for wildlife both in and around the river. And the proposed dam removal plan is part of the Agenda 2030 re-wildification programme and federal acquisition of private lands for preservation. Not exactly preserving the people, more what's under there. It's essentially an elite agenda to bankrupt the rural people and run them out of the rural and into their smart cities. I agree. Except they're pricing people out of the smart cities also. So, the elite don't like rural people. I agree with that, because they are independent, self-sufficient, rugged people who own guns and believe in liberty. Hear, hear. And it's my understanding that the elite want to make Siskiyou County into their playground and private resource preserve. We have refuted their science and confronted the deep state agenda, for lack of a better description, on many fronts, yet they keep finding work around through bribes, secret meetings, threats, backdoor deals with the tribes, which are a big problem, various agencies, the owners of the dams and state governments. They have bamboozled the general public into thinking that dam removal is a good idea, and have stolen funds from the California Water Bond Initiative that was passed to create more water for California, not destroy perfectly good dams and reservoirs to further their agenda. So you might have guessed we are fighting a real uphill battle, especially with the corruption within the California state government. We've been trying to get Mr. Trump's attention on the issue, as we are sure that he would be willing to intervene on our behalf, but he is a busy man. This is a much bigger issue than Northern California, and this will be the working model for taking over all the western United States. You know the saying, as goes California, so goes the rest of the country. Do you have any suggestions or means to help us, as I fear we're running out of time? Their proposed schedule is for dam removal by 2021. Well, it's a common theme, this playing with land. It's more to do with the resources that are below the land. Yet again, let's dig it all up and let's leverage it and let's carry on playing the game. Now, people have to understand there's a ridiculous amount of things going on at the same time now. And, not everything can be dealt with in a timely manner that people would like. People have individual needs, like this person who sent this in. They think that that's important. And I'm not saying it isn't, because it is. But there's a lot of bigger work that needs to be done before the more public version is dealt with. Once these clowns are dealt with once and for all, everything can change a lot quicker than it has been going on previously. You have to remove the elements out of the system and the system of control out of our environment altogether, where then we can make, hopefully, there's no guarantee, hopefully better decisions for us all going forward. But I do appreciate people want certain things to happen now, whether it's the funding, whether it's chemtrails gone, whether it's stopping of the directed energy weapons at California. We'd all liked it stopped yesterday. But I can't stress enough the amount of work that's ongoing at the moment. Because we're not just dealing with one particular group or one particular country. It's numbers of groups and all the countries, and all of it has to be coordinated in a way. And part of the problem is, who do you trust? You know, we in the trust, as in Manafort Home Trust, I've kind of run out of patience waiting for governments to fix anything, because they're all riddled with fear, or they're all bought and paid for. Well, all those people have to be addressed, and there is insufficient people or resources to deal with all of it in one go. But the pace is increasing as more and more of the cabal minions realise the illusion that they've been under all their lives, and suddenly turn on the people who are their paymasters. It will empty out a lot quicker, and that's where we're at now. You know, the child trafficking thing, you know, a lot of people think that's the most important. The work that's ongoing in that is requiring vast resources and quantities of time and manpower and female power. You know, it is unprecedented in what's going on. Is that there's so much that needs to be done. You know, Kim mentioned on the show in August last year about the 489 different aspects of life that have to be changed for the better. So we wish you well with what both of you, what you're doing on the issues in to do with Hydro 1 and also the Klamath project and the waters and the dams there. But suddenly, if everything went down, maybe a sacrificial lamb going here and there may tip an awful lot of things out, which then can roll out other things that would be more beneficial. So everything's on a knife edge currently. Right, let's get into some Q&A. Some held over from last week. So please don't keep putting in repeat questions. It doesn't help Holly. Sun's corona shows photos of something pulling energy from the sun in October of last year, and also Christmas Day of last year, and others. Did our helpers have anything to do with this, or do they know anything about Jupiter collecting an additional 12 moons, which was reported in July? Work goes on with the sun and the energies. Whether that was part of it, I don't know. It's too far back, you know. And as for Jupiter collecting an additional 12 moons, they didn't collect any additional 12 moons. It's just that NASA decided to announce there was an extra 12 moons. So it's been some time since this was discussed. I thought we discussed it a couple of months ago. Anyway, any update on the tribal ceremony required to complete the peace treaty? It's completed. The ceremony is an issue, but the peace treaty is still enforceable. The ceremony is still an issue because the people that need to be there at that ceremony, we've been told they will blow us out of the sky if we ever left to that region. So once those blocks are removed, then it's my understanding is Kim and I will be going to complete that tribal ceremony. But the peace treaty itself has now been signed off anyway, and that's just a formal gathering to declare it, but it's now enforceable anyway, which is why the SSP have been blocked from going underground, because the peace treaty doesn't just apply to humans, it applies to other beings that are below our feet. And so they're aware of the peace treaty, because they're tired of the SSP playing games and causing havoc, and so they're in their world and their realms. And I have seen the evidence of war by the others against the SSP. So I hope that answers that one. How can you tell the difference between karma and bad experiences manifested through unguarded thoughts? I don't think that those two are particularly related. Karma is kind of payback for previous indiscretions, which can happen over multiple lifetimes. Some people have to pay back their karma. Some people can pay it off in one lifetime, depending on how they are. Others, it may take several. Depends how bad they are and how they've corrected or balanced themselves. But bad experiences manifested through unguarded thoughts. I'm not too sure where you're going with that piece. We all have thoughts that come into our head that you think, where did that come from? It's part of the channeling frequency. And so if those thoughts come into your head, I said this a couple of weeks ago, whereby you can be driving along the road and suddenly you're seeing a vision of you being involved in an accident or some danger. You must say out, that's not happening, and keep repeating, that's not happening, as each of those visions come into your field. It's like a contract. They're giving you a timeline incident, and if you go along with it or ignore it, you have the possibility of going into that timeline and having that nasty accident. Whenever it comes up, no matter what experience, if it's not an experience you want to happen, you cancel the contract and say, that's not happening. Who are the Mumo, or is it Numo, who were here previous to the Anunnaki? That's the Dogon people in Mali. I met one of the tribal people in Irvine, California back in 2011. They're known as the fish people, which is why the Vatican has fish hats. And some of them are not good. They're from Sirius, and they did help in their own way the people of Mali, agriculture and different things, but it always comes with a price, and a heavy one. Now the people of Mali still celebrate once a year the people of the fish people, as they call them, or the Dogon tribe. But the fish people came down, or the Numo came down a long time back, and they told the people of Mali where their solar system was, and explained that there was 3 suns, which is Sirius A, B and C. And astronomers at the time, back in 1927, when they were telling British explorers there's only one star, it wasn't until 1977 that the telescopes realised there was actually 3, and the direct orbit that the Dogon people explained was correct. And people will often pass this off as, it's all a coincidence and this and that. But how would so-called, essentially, hunter-gatherers know that Sirius had 3 suns? with no telescopes. Clearly those people met those extraterrestrial beings at that time, so they still celebrate it. When you refer to a certain attempted transaction as being blocked, just how is it done? For example, what does it take for them to actually block something? That's not a particular question I'd like to answer. That could give secrets away. But they're blocking us, but rest assured we're blocking them far more than they're blocking us. We only have to get through once. All they're blocking is cut off the money laundering, the clearance accounts, the offshore accounts, and are now blocked totally out of the system. But I'm not explaining on the show the inner secrets of how it's done. I know the mainstream media is not covering the directed energy weapons issue in California and how they are destroying homes. The fact that we do not hear of this being an issue is appalling to me. Well, that's why we have an alternative media. You know, well, most of us anyway. Some of us, I should say, not most, sadly. I do tend to cover it, but the mainstream media is a complete waste of time. You know, Langley and the agency script writers for those news media are not going to put that out. So, you know, people, like you said, people think we're all nuts talking about it. But we now have video evidence, and the firefighters in California also have video evidence. Perhaps the firefighters in California should follow the Massachusetts police and walk out, like the NYPD could also all walk out en masse, and we get the Clinton Hoover bedding video outed. Just a thought. I thought I heard you state a few weeks back that it involves the military. Is it a domestic black ops program? Pretty much. It's more likely to do with SSP. And is something being done behind the scenes to stop this criminal activity? I imagine it is. There's a lot more fun and games going on in that whole region. I can't say too much, but like I said, there's a lot of things going on. You know, that has to be stopped. You know, so people have to be patient with, well, when's this getting done and when's that getting done? Do you think that the criminals will be brought to justice eventually? Yes. How many estimated people have died from this? I don't know. Like I said, I've been travelling for most of the week and unpacking, so. Next question. As I understand it, worldwide income tax basically went directly to the Rothschilds and thus the Manafort holding trust accounts. No. It goes to the Rothschilds' private bank accounts, not the Manafort holding trust. Is it still happening? Yes, the income tax is still going to the Rothschilds. Maybe work is underway on that front as well, to stop that fun and games. But the IRS sent 860 billion to a Swiss bank owned by the Rothschilds last year. Is Executive Order 11110 still in force? The executive order JFK was killed for, and if so, can American print its own money based on silver if this executive order is not being repealed? I'm not too sure about the details of that executive order. There was a couple around that time, one about America printing its own money, and the other executive order was to lower the secrecy levels from 49 cosmic down to 23 president, to do with the ET issue. But once the clowns are removed, the US Treasury, the proper US Treasury, put back in place, then yes, it can print its own money based on whatever commodity is most available. This will be the new change, as each country will be able to print money based on the commodities that they produce. You know, if it's Venezuela, it's likely to be oil. That's their main commodity. If it's Ghana or Congo, it can be diamonds. Zimbabwe also. So it's not just based on gold, which, as I've said in a previous show, is considered trash. They want other elements for other purposes. And I've seen vast slag heaps that are riddled with minerals valued at somewhere in the region of 14 trillion just left there. These people are just unreal. Will there be reparations due to Americans for the massive malfeasance instituted against them since being taken off the gold standard and being used as the world's piggy bank? It's nothing to do with the gold standard. It's been used as the world piggy bank since the Bretton Woods nonsense. America pays for everything. As for reparations, I'm not too sure how we would get them back. That doesn't mean to say it won't happen. But, you know, people, there's another question here. I don't know how many times I've answered that question. Maybe it's a new member, who knows. But will Nasara be announced? No. There is no Nasara fund. There never was. And we've said that a number of times now. Now, can another fund, which is similar to Nasara, be created by the trust? Yes, it can. But these are the things that have to that will come up. In essence, the People's Club can be Nasara, because a lot of funds will be going in and out of that foundation once it's up and running. So people who need help can get help. People come up with solutions, and you can build farms or whatever the people would like, and it's valid and it can be funded. Then it'll be funded. There's so many ideas, you know, but there is no Nasara. That was a small private thing to do with farmers having their land looted. Nothing to do with Americans in general. Is there any agency military working on finding a solution to the fires across the country? Yes. You answered a question a week or so ago about bank loans, possibly for 1% interest. How soon before we will know more about how this is set up, and will we need to jump through all the same hoops as banking required before? This is something that was mentioned as a possibility a few months ago, I think. It's all about the solutions after the fall. You know, there's many things that we, the people, via the People's Club and the other people that are going to get funded via the trust can do. You could set up a bank, and loans can be 1% or 0.5%. You can set up credit cards, for argument's sake, at 5%, still saving people at least 6% a month, and the interest can go back into the foundation which then can help more people. They could get involved in mortgages. But these are all after the fall of the system. Everything now is about eliminating the system. Oh dear. Is the British government in fear of what Trump is trying to do in America? Not necessarily the government, but certain elements of the intelligence are in fear because they're playing Rothschild's games. If your sources know what's going on behind the scenes, why didn't they know or tell you what the plan was with Trump before he got elected? Very loaded question. Yes, we did know what was going on. And we did say so on the show. Both a couple of days before he got elected and on the election night, where Mr. Trump literally, and I mean literally, shat his pants because he thought he was there to be a stooge for Hillary to win. But he never. He did win. So we sent people around to calm him down. And he was informed of the plan. So yes, we didn't know what was going on behind the scenes. We were active. Quite a while back you talked about whether it was a good idea to extinguish all those that had wronged us, because there were only a few who knew our true history. Has that view changed? No. It's not really for me to decide what we do with the rogue elements. There has to be a consensus. But I don't see the value in just lynching them, hanging them, executing them. It's going down to their low vibrational levels. Would it not be better to have them serve their remaining days of this lifetime on this planet reflecting on what they've done? Watching their whole control system be trashed and extinguished and vanquished into the annals of history. I think some of them, once it gets to a certain point, would like to go out, and you're probably going to see an awful lot of suicides because they can't face reality. But I don't think, and like I said, that's my personal opinion, I don't think lynching them, hanging them, running them through expensive court systems to determine what we already know, what they've done. I would like to see them reflect on what they've done and watch the rest of the world correct and move forward in a better way. That's just my opinion. In essence, the overview reality is all these people in the cabal are also victims, which doesn't please many people. But these people have been tortured from the womb onwards as children. You know, that in anyone's book makes them victims as well. Yes, it might look great that they've got all this wealth and this land and all these yachts and properties here and properties there, but would you as a child volunteer in your next lifetime to be tortured in the womb, and also by trainers like Svarley from North to 6 to get fancy yachts and fancy clothes and fancy vacation on a fat bank account? Would you do it? If you asked them if they had a choice as a child to do that, do you think they would have accepted it? No, I don't. But this is why I don't think it's going to help wiping them out. Like I said, that's my opinion. I like to balance things on both sides, because that way you can see what's being done to them, and what's being done to them actually in real terms is far worse than what we've endured. In real terms, once you take the external wealth and attributes away and strip it all down to the basic human being, like I said, would you go through a torture program for money? No. It will show that we have changed from our savage ways if we treat them with respect rather than torturing them and waterboarding them and forcing confessions out of them that we don't really need. We already know what they've done, all of them. Feel free to disagree with that, but I will not change my opinion on that. We're not about violence. If we're about violence and shooting people, then we really haven't learnt from the error of their ways. Why is the Trust not funding the information sites such as this one to get the information out by expanding your platforms? Our platforms are expanding exponentially, I might add. The waking up of people with these platforms would be helpful. Well, the Trust is blocked from getting the funds out currently. It won't always be that way. Will they fund an information site? Well, technically the People's Club will be that. Whether I'm involved in it full time or I get put into other roles remains to be seen. But if the Trust had the money, then yes, it would. Has Thomas ever talked about vaccines and the development of going up or down for humanity? In other words, will Big Pharma go down with all their poison, and will there be justice for the ones all vaccinated or hurt by them? Big Pharma will go down eventually, as more and more people learn a better way of life and not trust, but the whole trust in doctors and the poisons they give out. And when you realise you can actually heal yourself without the need of poisons, and all tablets and all medicines are a poison to the system. So, as for the justice for the ones that have been hurt by them, again, this is my opinion, I would say no. But then I'm not making the rules. And the reason being, which I stated a number of years ago, I personally think disclosure of all types should come with a full disclaimer. That way we can all move on with the real truth, and we could get on with the trust funds and improve everyone's lives, rather than each and every one of us being involved in at least 1,000 class action lawsuits. for all the crimes that have been done. That can never be paid out, and the only thing that will be collecting money is the same snake oil salesman known as bar lawyers. I just think it's kind of pointless. We've all suffered. You know, I've suffered. I've had my home foreclosed on. I've had funds stolen out of my bank account. You name it. Well, if you are trying to pay back, it'll just get ridiculous. It can't be paid out what we're owed. The birth certificate. Most birth certificates are worth somewhere in the region of 50 to 180 million. What are you going to do with it if everyone gets, for argument's sake, the lowest figure, 50 million each? The system can't support 50 million each. It would descend into utter chaos. And the bottom line is, what you have to remember is that money in and of itself will never fix anything unless the people change how they think about it and how they use it. Money's not a cure-all. Doesn't make anyone happy. Look at the cabal. They're not happy, are they? You've seen the kipper on Jacob Rothschild. Mr. Doom and Gloom. All the wealth he's got. You know, money can only fix so much. What is required is people changing their mindset. You know, like I said, we're all owed multi-millions. Can it be paid back? No. We just have to accept we've been hurt badly, and we use that as a driving force with all of us, where we use the trust funds to make sure nobody ever goes short in life again in the basics. Life's not about how many yachts or houses or cars or boats you've got. Life's about having an abundance of the basic needs in life, which most of this planet doesn't have. For those that cry in America and the EU countries, we're also in the top 25% of the wealthiest people on the planet. You know, as sad as that sounds, it is the reality. And so we have to change the way we look at money, and collecting bundles of it in class action lawsuits on vaccines and chemtrails and failed education systems, deliberately failed education systems, the birth certificate issue, the mortgage issue. You could go on and on for the rest of the show. You have to accept at some point we've been duped, and we can use the trust funds in a better way so it doesn't happen ever again, that no one goes short and everyone gets healed and health treatment that's not costing $1,000 a month, whether you use it or you don't, and not bankrupting people because they've had an accident or got some serious illness. That again, that has to stop. With 5G, direct energy weapon, lasers and other technology rolling out, and more wondering if any of it can be obtained. It will, when time allows. Like I said, it's all about the inner war. What you're describing is the outer war. Once the inner war is completed, then we can deal with the external issues. Is there a financial remedy for banks overcharging monthly increases on credit loans and mortgage payments, predatory lending practices on elderly individuals without prior written notice? Well, the banks are being stripped, both financially and also regulatory as well. Mentioned earlier about Wells Fargo. That's going to be the first of many. Ocwen, another rogue element that are based out of the Deutsche Bank, the Nazi bank in Germany. They've just been stealing homes left, right and centre all over the country, and not once they offer a loan modification because it fulfills the law, and then they refuse it. The bizarre thing about my own house, I said you can come back and refinance the house at around $220,000 because you've committed fraud, and they told me no, and now the house is up for sale for just short of 240 and no one's buying it. Maybe that's some divine intervention that no one's buying it. Maybe it won't buy it until Ocwen are dealt with. Do you think brothers can be handlers? Interesting question. I was thinking that some of us may have been put into certain families to be around certain people to keep us more in line a certain way. This is far more common than you realise. It was a big issue back in the 60s and the 70s. It did get better after that. But then other people come into your life, loved ones, partners, who play games and stifle you or hold you back or push you into a different path. And this is happening to many of us in the alternative media and the listeners also. And it's up to you to recognise what they're doing and take your own steps. Is it difficult when it's blood family? Yes, it can be. But you've got to ask yourself, is your life more important than the blood relation? Would the blood relation do the same for you? You have to take family out of it and be a little bit selfish, because families, as we all know, can be rather damaging because we hold on because it's family or because it's a loved one, wife, husband or partner. But if it's being destructive to your life, I don't see any rules saying that you have to continue doing that. And ultimately it becomes down to the individual of how much they're prepared to tolerate. So if it's an issue within your family, you've obviously recognised it, and it's now up to you to deal with it. Is it painful? Yeah. I've been through it myself with family members, wives, sons, friends. They all disappeared. And when I look back now, I'm glad. Because there's nothing worse than being in an environment with vampiric people. It was bad enough 5 years ago. It's way worse now with the change in frequencies. Two more. You mentioned previously that Queen Elizabeth is a sovereign. Who else are currently sovereigns? Well, Kim is. I don't know who the rest are. You said that one's nation must first be sovereign before any person that can be sovereign. Yep. Because otherwise you'll get goons like Rothschilds or Bushes declaring themselves sovereign and then taking over the whole country. So the country has to be stabilised as the sovereign to then grant sovereignty on a sub-sovereign basis to the people. But as Kim has said, every country is sub-sovereign to Kim and the trust. But Kim's not going the old way, where the trust rules over the countries and the sovereigns, because every country that declares themselves sovereign, whilst it's titled as sub-sovereign, they will be given the same vote as the Manor World Holding Trust. So it ends this nonsense, like the Commonwealth countries, of which there's 53, all those countries were declared independent, a bit like America, which was an illusion and not real. Hong Kong, India, a whole heap of countries that Britain controlled and were given back, allegedly given back, but on the condition that when they were in a UN meeting, they voted with the mother country. Australia, New Zealand and other two, they still carry part of the British flag. So when Britain votes on a UN bill, the 52 other countries have to vote the same as Britain. So the countries then are being declared sovereign will not be beholding to any other country. They will be sovereign on their own. So the key to humanity's liberation is the conversion of those in positions of power in individual countries, or when they are unfunded and thus rendered powerless. That's called the inner war, and that's that war we're winning heavily, and eventually it will spill out to the external war, and we can start fixing the things that some of the people are asking questions on tonight. If Kim is truly the primary sovereign, seems all must fall in alignment with this principle, as truth, honesty and integrity are the prime directive, and any and all new leaders must align. Is this correct from your perspective? Yes. We can't guarantee that none of them will go rogue in the future, but we did set up certain stipulations of how to go about things once they were declared sovereign. There's going to be nothing worse than countries gaining sovereignty for it and its people to then have one rogue element in that government sign away property rights over to, for argument's sake, Rothschilds again. We have to start thinking different, and that applies on all levels. And I hopefully in the future, where we see countries not being separate as they are now, but combined, where everyone shares the resources, so no one is fighting wars because they've got more of this than that. When we get to that stage, this world will be a completely different place. There's no need to compete for anything. That's what's done damage to this planet, the competition, and unfair competition as well, loaded against the people. It's also loaded against many of the lower minions of the cabal, including all politicians. They're all puppets. They've got less control and less power than we have. Believe it or not, they're far more controlled than we are. And if they're not dirty, they'll create stuff. So they always have something on you that you have to do their bidding, whether that person agrees with it or they don't. And of course, you know what happens when you don't agree. Come along here, Sonny, and back of the head. Bye. That's the way it's been. Well, it's up to the people that get placed into power in the countries that they operate for and by the people. Because if you're not, then it's up to the people then, once they've gained the knowledge of what's gone on, to remove them. It's like the militia here. They should have removed our government a long time back. But of course the militia is being infiltrated by agency goons and rendered mute. Can you tell us anything about Putin? Is he really a good guy? More good than bad. He's more interested in protecting Russia, and rightly so. Can he be seen as a leader to aid other countries? Yes. Can he be corrupted? Yes, as well. Like again, they've all had choices. Putin got duped badly when he was told he was going to be the Pindar, and he was for a while, and he chucked it. Why? Because he realised it was all a pile of crap. So when people get duped like that, sometimes they turn nasty the other way on the ones that were duping. And I think you're seeing some elements of that now. I'm not sure how far discussions went with sovereignty for Russia. Like I said, it's more about protecting from the NATO goons and the Nazi element. Any comments on China and Xi Jinping? China gets a lot of flack, but there's China, the country, is fine. Xi Jinping is fine. The Chinese government is fine. Are there elements in it that are badly rogue? Absolutely. And Jinping has been throwing out the Dragon Group people that have infiltrated and done a lot of damage to China and its reputation. And so he and the other people in China would love to see them removed altogether also. These fake Chinese elders. Hope that helps. Can you tell us about which laws this planet is being held under now? No. The law of common sense should apply now. You know, I don't want to get in. I've covered the law a number of times now, whether it's common law, natural. Everyone you say, see, always someone says, no, it's this and no, it's that. How about just the simple golden rule that we all look after each other and not do each other harm, not shoot each other, not kill each other, and not steal off each other? You can call it whatever law you want. You wouldn't need laws if people acted within their own personal responsibility. And the end goal for we the people is we don't need law. What we need is everyone acting in their own personal responsibility, and you can call it whatever law you like. Are all these laws still subject to the so-called authority of the church? Well, we're still operating under the law of the sea, maritime law. That's the main law now, but eventually that will come down as well. That's part of, yet again, is another part of the external war, once the internal war is finished. Not much has been said about taking down the evil order of the Black Pope. We did so recently, highlighted him, and how maybe the white one is going to be sacrificial lamb also this month. We'll see. will you share about when this order is going to be done away with? I have no idea when anyone's going to be done away with. Like I keep saying, there's so much going on every level. It's mind-boggling. It really is mind-boggling. And the fact that with so few people and with so little resources and so many people stuck in their illusion world, it's staggering we've got this far. It really is staggering. But I want to repeat again, most of these questions tonight are all what's going to happen or when's this going to happen. All of them are the external aspects of what's taking place. All of them. The directed energy weapons, the vaccines, law, whatever name you want to call it, sovereignty. We're going to be getting money from compensation from banks, Nasara. They're all external things. We have to finish off and fix the internal war before anything to do with external can be launched. Is there some aspects of it in all of them being dealt with? Yes, but you can't be in all places at once. Me personally, I think we're doing extraordinary. It will go down in history this time of how what was relatively a very few amount of people and a few amount of others as well. It's not just humans. Collapsed a whole control system that was being operating for 78,000 years in under a decade. So patience is the word going forward. I know we're all tired, none more so than yourself and poor Kim. Not everything can be well, you say Rome couldn't be built in a day, so we certainly can't be expected to collapse a behemoth control system in a day either. But we're making extraordinary strides, and I'm pleased with the progress. Kim's delighted with the progress, and we're just seeing it erode away day by day. And as they erode, we get stronger, and we get into more fields and collect more people and more resources to help. Right, on that note, I'm going to end the show. And let's end on this one.